when it comes to Toshi, I think there's a good update right now, even though nothing I say is financial advice. And now I'll talk about 2 cents later on the video and what I think about that. But first, I want to talk about what Toshi had going on with Ryogo and how kind of it's played out so far. Because if I take a look at, what Toshi did not too long ago with Ryogo, sometimes people are like, who really cares about this? But I thought it was pretty interesting because just to kind of reiterate and just kind of to showcase what I mean by this, RealGo is supposedly the world's first augmented reality and AI and as well as Web3 game where meme intellectual properties come alive, so to speak. And when it comes to that, now we're beginning to see a glimpse of Toshi in RealGo. And again, during this post, they talk about how so far, over 5,000 Toshi has been captured, and they're talking about how when in this game supposedly capturing Toshi and then there's earning Toshi and there's redeeming Toshi and also earning Toshi. And yeah, I just think that even though the game graphics, it may not necessarily look like, Batman level type of, quality or like, Spider-Man type of level, but then at the same time, still looks really cool in my opinion. And I think it's the thought that counts ultimately. Will I be playing this? No. But then still, I think it's a pretty good concept nonetheless. Now, when I take a look at this, people like to say, okay, but how does this really even benefit something like Toshi? Well, again, RealGo, even though they're not necessarily the biggest thing out there, it is pretty interesting because I think that this is kind of like Toshi's sort of foray, right, into that blockchain gaming space, even though it's kind of indirect in a sense, but I still think it's pretty cool nonetheless. And I think that it gives at least something to look forward to because let's face it, even though Toshi has had a pretty okay sort of recovery, in the past couple of months, even though as of right now, altcoins are not necessarily doing the best, Toshi has been doing pretty okay despite the setbacks, but I still think that it at least gives me something to be entertained about, right? Because when there's no altcoin season, I get it, it's sometimes a little bit boring, but to me, at least taking a look at something like this, it gives me some interest, right? It at least gives me something to look forward to. Now, sometimes you like to say, okay, but why would you care about, again, stuff like this if it's not really going to do anything to the price of Toshi right now in any significant way? Well, the thing is, I think stuff like this, again, is not necessarily just going to make Toshi do any sort of significant, like, let's say 300% or something like that type of movement. However, I think it's kind of laying down the groundwork for maybe what Toshi could be moving forward because if, let's say, there's an altcoin season, sometimes people take a look back at stuff like this, They take a look at maybe what Toshi is doing with Toshi tools, maybe what they're doing with RealGo. Like, again, what I'm talking about in this video, and also on top of that, maybe Toshi Mart could be also a big narrative for Toshi, let's say during an altcoin season. Because what I've seen time and time again is that typically when sentiment, right, when it comes to altcoins starts becoming good, what usually do sometimes people want to launch? Projects. They just want to launch, projects, right, when the market is doing good, sometimes I've seen. And I think the reason for that is because sometimes people don't really want to launch a project when it's not necessarily doing the best in terms of the market. So if let's say there's an altcoin season, what is sort of a very popular meme coin launchpad for, memes, let's say on the base network? Arguably, I think it's something like Toshi Mart, right? Which is basically meme coin launchpad, and Toshi is on the base network. So if someone wants to launch a meme coin on the base network, where will they choose? Who knows? But Toshi Mart, I think, is arguably, pretty fascinating for me to see. Now, when I take a look at it as well, people like to say, okay, but really, no one's going to care about Toshi Mart because who's going to care about the base network anymore when there's an altcoin season? Well, again, even though the base network doesn't have its own native token, we've kind of seen the historical performance of something like Toshi so far, something like Aerodrome, which is a decentralized exchange, something like Brett, for instance, which is another meme coin on the base network. And I think that right there is kind of a testament to the sort of growing popularity of the base network because the base network, keep in mind, does not have its own native token. So unlike some other projects out there or some other layer twos, which do have their own native token, the base network, being Coinbase's layer two, does not have that. And also on top of that, I take a look at projects that are on there and how they have performed so far, like a Toshi, for instance, like an Aerodrome, like a Brett. And ever since they had a pretty good rally not too long ago, even despite the pretty decent recovery, they're still down by quite a lot when compared to not too long ago. So I'm totally aware of that. But then at the same time, this is the altcoin space things are just going to move a lot more kind of up and down like that, like a roller coaster, when compared to something like a Bitcoin or Ethereum, where it feels a lot more stable. But I knew that getting into it, so I'm not necessarily surprised as to what I'm seeing, and I'm not necessarily concerned either because I am still dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting. Now, when I take a look at the idea of 2 cents, considering current circulating supply, market cap at that point would be around 8.5 billion, which is around a 25x from here. It's not going to be the best thing of all time, I'm totally aware of that, but I'm not necessarily looking for that either because my kind of criteria when I look for a meme coin is that I clearly do not want to kind of believe in something that has a way too massive market cap. Like, for instance, we take a look at the Dogecoin, for instance, but then at the same time, do I really want to get into a microcap? Not really. No, actually. So then at the same time, why would I want to look for either if I'm not looking for that? I'm looking for something in between. I'm looking more so for something that has a pretty decent market cap, a good following, and then has sort of this kind of vibe, which I think is unique and interesting. And I do see that when it comes to Toshi. Now, again, Toshi by no means is the biggest project out there, but it's not necessarily the smallest either. And I just kind of like that balance, so to speak. But even besides that, what I also like about Toshi is the listings that it has. Like, for instance, we take a look at what it did with OKX US, Binance US, even Coinbase. So I find it pretty interesting nonetheless. Now, again, people like to say, okay, but why is the price like this? Why is, some other meme coins out there doing better in terms of market cap? Well, it's because Toshi, again, first of all, it is on the base network. And the base network isn't necessarily the most popular thing out there, even despite being Coinbase's layer 2. And also on top of that as well, those exchange listings, I think, are just more so kind of laying down the groundwork and the foundation for a moment in time in which, let's say, there is an altcoin season, or let's say when the altcoin space does a lot better. It may not be kind of an immediate sort of this instant gratification type of feeling where, oh, it get listed here, that means it's just suddenly going to do this. It's not necessarily always like that, especially if it is not during an altcoin season or at a time where altcoins are not doing the best. So I'm still staying patient when it comes to Toshi, and of course, when it comes to the start of an altcoin season, I won't be able to pinpoint the exact moment in time because it's just not possible for me to do that. But then at the same time, the way I view it is that if I'm just dollar cost averaging, holding and just waiting, whenever that market does decide to wake up, whether or not I'm sleeping or I'm doing some activities, maybe I don't miss out on that ride because I was just holding the entire time anyways. If I'm trying to find the exact moment in time, first of all, I don't think I'll be able to do that. And also, it just creates a lot of unnecessary stress, in my opinion. And I'm not telling you to do anything, by the way. This is just what I'm doing personally. But if I'm just holding, just waiting, whatever, right? Maybe the market can pump suddenly at a 4 a.m. on a November. I don't know. I'm just making an example here, but I'm saying, like, I don't have to find that exact moment. It's just by holding, let's say something happens, kind of like going along with the ride. And again, 2 cents at around $8.5 billion market cap. It's nothing that I would think that seems too ridiculous. Like, it's not such an outlandish amount, especially for, arguably, I think currently the most popular meme coin on the base network. And yes, I actually think it's more popular than Brett as of right now. But this is just my perspective. I still believe in Brett, but it just doesn't seem like such a ridiculous market cap. I've seen Shiba Inu reach around 40 billion. I've seen Dogecoin reach over 80 billion back in 2021, years ago. This just wouldn't necessarily surprise me, but only time will tell. But nonetheless, I like this update when it comes to Toshi. I just think it looks pretty cool. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. I'm still looking forward, still staying patient, and staying the course, and I'm not giving up. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. And I hope y'all have a nice day. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.